question is, my first question is, what other opportunities do you think attending conference can bring for the early career researchers, such as to help us to grow or to improve ourselves?
That's a good question. It's always to attend conferences, but then depending on how much money you have or if you get any support from your institution. And so in addition to present, I guess there are different purposes of attending conferences. One is to get your research out so that people will begin to know you, know your name, know your face. It's always good to see people in person because then if you make a good impression, people will remember you. So going out there to present your research, to gradually establish your network. If you have a particular focus, a goal, for example, if you really want to get some awards, you want to, for example, get a best paper award, best presentation award, that will be another a good reason to attend. Of course, then you need to put the best work forward. So depending on the purposes of attending, whether you want to just get feedback to your research so that you can improve, you want to learn from others. Very often when we attend conferences, we see the most updated research because as you know, a journal publication takes a few months to a year, or hopefully within a year, but then they conducted the research a year or two or even longer ago. So attending conferences, you get to hear the most recent updated research other people are doing. So present your research, get information, get feedback, get other people's research idea, establish your network. If you do get to attend conferences, in addition to participating in other people's presentation, you want to attend all the social programs, you want to meet people, talk to people. So I depending on where you're from, when you go to a conference, your university may have a group of people going, a group of faculty member, a group of students. It's only natural for us wanted to talk to our friends. But I think at the conference situation, since you're paying so much money for the conference, you want to take advantage of the opportunity to talk to people that you don't know. So that would be one way to grow your network. And that's another purpose of attending conferences. And of course, if you're approaching graduation, then attending conferences could give you the opportunity to look for potential job opportunities, because a few conferences are known to be the place, to be the quote unquote marketplace for people to look for potential candidates and for people to look for potential positions. So I guess there are a variety of reasons depending on where in your study progress, then the purpose could be quite different. But it's always good to attend conferences and then get to know people. But you don't want to attend too many conferences, because attending each conference takes a lot of time. In addition to resources, money and time, both are resources. It does take a lot of time because you need to prepare for paper submission and then travel. Depending on where it is, you have jet lag. So coming back and forth, it will take a chunk of time out of your study, out of your research. So if you're attending 3, 4, 5 conferences a year, then that could be counterproductive. Yeah, so overall, it's a good idea, but you may want to be selective. Maybe 1 or 2 a year, I think, to start will be good.
Thank you very much for your suggestion. And as you mentioned that one advantage or the way is to know the people who I didn't know before, to know some people. And I think one of the important intention for us is to know people who are like-minded people, like we have same interest and we have the something in common, and we may cooperate in the future. So in this case, and what will you suggest to like how to present ourselves, because most of us attend the conference, we will present, right? And sometimes it's hard to identify if this person is the suitable one to cooperate with, and how will you suggest to help us to select the right person, or the people who are like-minded, like
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, if you
Thank
know
you.
somebody, if you want to know somebody who already has publications, then obviously before you attend conferences, you can identify a few people. Many of the conferences will give you a roster, so you will know who will be there before you go. You can go through the roster and see if there's any particular names that you can recognize based on your literature review, you know, in the past. So you can identify a few people that you want to find an opportunity to meet. So that would be one way to prepare yourself. The other way is, of course, you attend other people's session. Then you pick the session you're interested. You pick the session that who presents studies similar to yours, or it's a new area, but you're really wanted to learn more. Then after the presentation, you can talk to them. You can ask questions and you can talk to them. So I understand some people, when they attend conferences, they take this as an opportunity to go out and have fun, and that is fine, but you don't want to skip the sessions, skip all of the sessions, because that's an opportunity for you to learn and for you to identify potential collaborators. So once you identify the person, then you need to really talk to them, because then you have to find somebody who's compatible in their personality, in their working style, in their, you know, expectation. So it's a trial and error. It's a learning process. Have I collaborated with somebody I regret? Yes, I have. I mean, it's a learning process. Not that that person is a bad person, but it's just different working style and different expectations. And so yeah, you can try and work with somebody on something small and see if it works. If it works, then you can move on to something a little more tangible, larger in scope. But start with something small, and then to find out the compatibility issue first.
Thank you very much. It's a very valuable suggestions. Yeah, I didn't think about that detail before. And I have another question, is that I noticed now conference offer like diversified choices. And for example, we can submit the abstract only, or working paper, or the full-length paper. And when we present, it could choose like the presentation in some topic, the session, and also we can choose the posters for some conferences. And for each format or style, it's hard for me to distinguish the advantages. For example, my friends also tell me that if we present with the posters, we will have more opportunities to chat or to talk. And if we present, maybe more people will see us. And so how will you suggest for each format, and what are the advantages, and how to choose it? What will be your suggestions? Thank you.
Okay. Well, it depends on the nature of the topic. Some topic present better in visual format, others present better in oral format, right? So if you have something that's really visual, actually now the poster, quote unquote poster, no longer is restricted to having a poster, right? I think you can bring multimedia to the presentation. So it's more than just a traditional poster. And also, depending on your institution, I understand now, if you're a student, your institution probably doesn't have much expectation for your research output. But once you get an academic position or research position, you may want to check with your institution, check with your employer, whether a poster will give you the same amount of credit as a stand-up presentation. Different institutions rate them differently. Some institutions see stand-up presentation as carrying more weight and then poster presentation, but that's not true for all the institutions. So it's always a good idea to check with your supervisor to find out whether it make any difference. And so having an oral presentation, then you can explain things one time to many people in the audience, whereas for poster, it's more of a one-on-one. And you never know how many people will stop by. It depending on conferences as well. At some of the conferences, people just walk by, and usually it's part of a cocktail hour, or so people were just basically drinking and walking around without really having that in-depth discussion with you. But at some other conferences, people are more serious, and then you get to really talk to people. But then many times you have to answer the same question, explaining your study from scratch to everyone stopping by. So I guess it depends on what do you prefer. So that's the difference between oral presentation and poster. And the other question you raise is, do you want to submit an abstract, an extended abstract, or a full paper?
Yes.
Again, that depending on your plan for that piece of research. If you eventually want to publish it in a journal, I would suggest you submit an abstract only, because if you submit a full paper, unless you can submit a full paper, but then only have the abstract published. So you need to check with the conference organizer, can I submit a full paper now, but I only publish the abstract or an extended abstract? Because once you get it published, you cannot use the same writing for journal submission. That means when you submit the study to a journal, you have to rewrite all the statements. Otherwise, the similarity report will show up and saying, hey, this has been published before. So you can publish the study, but you need to just to rewrite, rephrase whatever you published in the journal, in the conference proceedings. So if you have the intention to submit that to a journal, then you should reserve most of the writing so that it's not out there, searchable. But if attending a conference, your primary purpose is to compete for a best paper, then very often the conference organizer will require you to submit a full paper.
I see. But for working paper is not too, it's not that long, and well, that if for publish for working paper, is that also it's okay for publish it, the working paper in journal later?
Well, whatever you publish, you cannot use the same writing.
I
So
see.
if you publish 200 words, 500 words, then you have to rewrite that 500 words.
I see. Thank you very much. It's very useful. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. What strategy should doctoral student adopt concerning the number of simultaneous research projects and the choice between collaboration and independent work, and the determination of roles such as first author, co-author, and corresponding author to maximize their academic career prospects? The number of simultaneous research projects, I would suggest to keep it to a small number, because you have limited amount of time, and it usually takes longer for early career researchers to complete a study, simply because you spend time on literature review, you spend time, for the first time you do everything, it does take longer. So in addition to your thesis, I would say keep it to 1 or 2. Once you finish with 1 or 2, then you can pick up 1 additional. So try not to spread yourself too thin, because time management is an issue. It's not how many projects that you start that matters, it's how many you finish that matters, and how many you can get quality projects finished so that you can get publication. The choice between collaboration and independent, more and more we see people doing collaborative work. It's getting more and more difficult to work on anything by yourself, really. Again, that relates to the time issue and also expertise issue. We see a lot more interdisciplinary research being conducted. That means unless you are truly a multidisciplinary trained person, that means you need to find somebody from a different discipline who can supplement your skill set. So if you can find somebody who really works well with you, then 1 + 1 in this case greater than 2. So then your productivity for both of you will be greater than actually your combined talents. But having said that, I'm not saying you shouldn't do independent work. Eventually, people will judge your ability to do independent work. Very often in the future, when you get apply for promotion, then people will look at, can you work with people and can you work independently? So you need to have a bit of both. But the trend is we see more and more groups of people working together, complementing each other's skill sets. And the determination of the roles, such as first author, co-author, corresponding author, for me, it depends on the contribution. Depending on who contributes more, then should be the lead author. Corresponding author is really a new phenomenon. I'm not too familiar with how do you determine that. I understand being a corresponding author in some countries that carries some weight, but that's not across the board. That's not internationally. Many countries don't consider corresponding author having more credit. It basically goes with the first, second, third, fourth author. So I'll go by that sequence in our discipline. In other discipline, that's a different story. I understand in some other discipline, they put the author's name in alphabetic order. So it's not who contribute more to be listed first. It's based on alphabetic of your last name. For me, it's based on contribution. Whoever makes the most intellectual contribution and also does most of the writing should be the first author. And of course, when you the question relates to academic career prospects, then it will be good to have a combination of first author and co-authorship. Because if all of your publication, you're listed as the second, third, fourth, or sometimes even fifth author, but you have never had any first author paper, then that would not be a good sign. When you look at career progression, but on the other extreme, you're listed as the first author for every single paper, and all the other people who work with you never get the first authorship, that may show something about your personality and your ability to work with others as well. So it's always good to have a balance in terms of single author, multiple author, first author, and co-authorship. Okay, the next question in the chat box is about preprints. The policy of tourism management regarding the acceptance of paper that have been previously published as preprints. Is it acceptable to submit a paper that is an open science platform and then submit it to tourism management? At the current time, it is not allowed. If it's published as preprint, we ask you to put a temporary embargo on it, or to at least conceal your identity so that we can do a double anonymized review, because it is in the author's guide that the review process for tourism management is double anonymized. If the information is out there, reviewers can do a very simple search and find out who the authors are. Then that becomes a single blind review rather than double. So far we still follow the double blind, double anonymized review process. So that's where we stand right now for tourism management. And of course, you're welcome to put it back online or to publish it once the review process is completed, or reveal the identity once the review process is completed. Before you submit a paper to any journal, I do suggest you to do a similarity check by yourself. I assume most of the institutions have that available for you to use. It's always a good idea to do that, because if you don't do that, all the journals now have that in the system, although your system, your institution system and the journal system may give a slightly different percentage of similarity, because they may use different sources of information, but it won't be, too far apart, too much difference. So it's always to do that on your own first before you submit. Most of the journals that I understand only give you one opportunity. So if based on technical issues, for example, your similarity is over the threshold of the journal standard, then your paper would get that's rejected automatically. Then that's your only chance with that particular journal. So it's always a good idea to do a search before, do a similarity check and address any of the similarity issues before you submit the paper to any journal. Hi, Daisy.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, to follow up with the similarity thing. So for TM, is that around 12 to 15% for the similarity?
I think we in the author's guide it says 1% or less for any of the sources, and a cumulative 15%.
Okay. Is that including references or no? Reference list?
No, it couldn't include
okay.
references, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think it's pretty similar among all the journals.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes we do see percentages higher than 15, for example, 18, 19, 20, 22. But then when we look up the numbers, everything is under 1%. I mean, that's fine. But if we see anything jump out as 3%, 5%, then that's really an issue. Then we will look at the source of the similarity. And very often we find that in those situations, when you have a high percentage, very often we find that maybe you have a very similar model, you use similar construct, you simply change one thing. So it's not really a very innovative piece of work. So similarity percentage will trigger that opportunity for the editors to find out. Okay, the question in the chat box is, in the long run, should young people try multiple topics or try to focus on one? I think in previous, I think last month we talked about this a little bit. I would say you should have a focus. You should try to find a focus that you can stay with for the long run, but that doesn't mean that you can't do anything else. So the question is your young people, right? So young people, then I will assume you have 20, 30 years of research coming up to do. That means you have a research career of 20 or 30 years. Then you need to really have one central idea, one central expertise that you follow through throughout the 20, 30 years of your career, so that down the road, when people think of a particular topic, people will think of you the expert in that particular area. If you just do different things all the time, then you really don't have any expertise area. So it's difficult, just like branding, right? We need to do our personal branding. If you change your products all the time, then the market get confused. It's the same thing here. You need to stay with one topic that you think you're good at, you're interested in, and you can establish a name for yourself. On top of that, then you're welcome to do things that, come along, or simply because people ask you to collaborate, or something you find particularly interesting, or because of a particular phenomenon just pop up, you're interested in doing that, you have the opportunity to do, that's fine. But I would suggest you have a research agenda, a clear research agenda that you can sustain your efforts. And that's something that you really need to be interested in. Otherwise, you won't be able to do that for a long time. You have to do it day in and day out for the next 20, 30 years. And that's something that you have to be very, very passionate about. The next question is, does TM now also have a generative AI percentage check like Turnitin? No, we don't. At the current time, we ask the author to self-declare. So there is a statement in the author guide asking the author to declare how they use if they use generative AI and how they use generative AI. I understand Turnitin claims that they have a Gen AI percentage check, but that's not very accurate based on our use, because we use that for some of our colleagues use that to check students' assignment, but usually the results are not very reliable. So no, currently TM does not have a checker for Gen AI. You have a look, and I look at one more question just came up. As an author, how to choose a proper journal to submit a paper? There may be two common ways. One is to submit high ranking to low ranking. The other is to submit based on the journal's preferences. Sometimes I find topics align with the journal scope, but the editor may not agree. I feel selecting the right journal can be challenging. Oh, that's true as well. I would say, of course, you want to go with the higher ranked journal, but journal ranking is kind of a controversial issue. What do you mean by high ranking journal? Because the impact factor changes every year, and impact factor is not everything. And of course, if your institution has a list of ranking, you go by your institution's ranking. That would be the smartest thing to do, because you want to meet your job requirement. But the other thing is, yes, you need to look at the fit. I always say look at the fit with the journal. Otherwise, you will get this rejected right away. If the journal editor disagree with you, likely you will get desk rejected. And that may not be a bad thing. And desk rejection is actually not bad, because you get a response pretty quickly. Usually you don't have to wait for a much longer time. So if you think it's a good fit, submit to that journal. If you go back, another trick I learned from the authors is that they put it in the cover letter, explaining to the editor why you think it's a good fit for the journal. Sometimes I've never done that as an author, but sometimes I find the authors making a good point and saying why this paper fits to your journal. And I was like, okay, that makes sense, right? So they may point out something that I never thought about. So yeah, for me personally, I always look at a fit. And of course, look at your institution's list. All right, Daisy, did you get a chance to pick out a question that you can answer?
Yeah, I think I picked the one, where is it? Yeah, in the long run, so the young people try multiple topics or try to focus on one. And yeah, I think this is also a very interesting topic. Yeah, I think I have the similar answers with the Professor Xu, as because I try different ways, but I feel that the way really that works well is that you really focus on one of your expertise area, but you can work on some other topics, but topics is better to be related to your own area. You can extend your topic to some other field. For example, when I was doing tourist resident social contact, that's in the destination's point of view. But when I was having opportunity to working with other people in Airbnb, it seems like a sharing economy context, but it also have the issue or concerns about host-guest interaction. So I think, oh, maybe I can have a try. So don't really go very far away from your own expertise area, but it's fine to maybe collaborate with other people on some other, for example, context or issues, destinations. I think that's probably a way to try it out. Yeah, and I also have some experience, like when I co-author with others, but in entirely different areas, I don't feel I'm very comfortable and confident about the writing, about the theories, because I'm not expert in that area. And if the reviewer is challenging back about the writings, about the drawbacks in the literature review, it's not really that right. So I feel to try something, but it's better to be related to your own area.
Okay, good. I mean, Daisy, can I classify you as a mid-career researcher?
I don't feel
You don't feel that?
I'm old enough, but I'm not mature enough in the research area. But probably I how to say experience quite a lot in the early career researcher. I mean the pathway. So I have experience in the early career process, but I cannot say I'm over that yet. So yeah.
For tourism management, we started having the viewpoint pieces, starting from I think only a few volumes ago. We only do that one per volume, and those are not peer reviewed. Those are very short, like 1,500 words. So if you get a chance, you may want to go through them. I thought some of them are quite interesting. The latest one, I think Bob McKercher and Brent Moyle, they talked about framework, adopting framework. And then earlier we have pieces about ESG. We have a piece about some challenges of some population of the researchers' access to data. And then, so anyway, we have one per issue or volume, we call it now. Some of them are quite thought-provoking. Those are not research-based; those are just viewpoints. But we thought those topics are interesting enough so that we decided to create a category for them. You may not. And they may not pop up in your literature review if you only do database searches. That's something that's another thing that I will remind all the researchers is that we're now with the technology, with the databases, we're so used to doing keyword searches. Way back, I think Rick Perdue, the previous JTR editor, previous JTR editor-in-chief, he made a comment that in the old days, of course, you can tell this is like us old people saying things. In the old days, we go to the library, we flip through the pages, and sometimes you will find something that you never thought about. It's like, oh, that's interesting. And that's where new ideas come from. But nowadays, we're so restricted to keyword searches. You know what you're searching. So you will not encounter anything that you're not interested or it's not on your radar. And that's quite limited in a sense. If you haven't thought about something, you didn't type in the keywords, then they will not show up on your reading list. So I guess if you can just establish a habit of going through the table of contents of all the journals, sometimes you will find, oh, that's interesting, and you never thought about it. So that you can expand your horizon a little bit to read something that's not already registered in your mind. I would suggest you to do that if you have the time, right? So in the previous issue or volumes, we have an article about pre-registration, and that will be coming up shortly. In terms of encouraging tourism studies to do pre-registration before they develop their full manuscript, before they carry out the study and develop the full manuscript. Like I mentioned, the earlier case about framework bias, and we had an article on ESG. We had an article on some critical reflection. I think the first one was by Albert Assaf, Critical Reflection of Tourism Literature on Performance Modeling. So they all have something interesting to say. So if you have a chance to go through the table of content and try to find out those viewpoint papers, they're very easy to read. They're not research papers and pretty short. So you may pick up a thing or two. Okay, we have another question about focus. As we focus on main topics, do you think we also need to focus the kind of methodology, or it's better to use multiple methods? Methods are tools. So the more tools you have in your toolbox, obviously, the more equipped you are. So when we, for example, electrical technician, when you see them go out on the job, they have a toolbox, right? If you have a really big toolbox, then whatever problem you encounter, you have a piece of tool that can solve that problem. So the more equipped you are, the more capable you are to solve different issues. So methodology is a tool. It's not something that you have to use a particular methodology or a particular method for all the problems that you have. Different problems require different methods to solve, right? Some issues require qualitative inquiry. Some methods require interview, survey, observation, big data, experimental studies. And so, yeah, I would say learn as many methods as you can, so that at least to a level of familiarity, so that you understand what each method is capable of, and also the limitation of each method. Then when you have an issue, you will be able to judge, okay, of all the tools that I have, which will be the most effective to solve that particular problem, rather than saying, I know this method, therefore I will study this. It's the other way around, right? It shouldn't be method driven, it should be problem driven. So when you have a problem, what is the most appropriate method to solve that problem? That's my take. I understand some people only do big data analysis throughout their career. That is fine, but then you really need to think hard. So it's not a phenomenon driven inquiry then. It's a method. I have this method for what problem can I solve, rather than I have these problems, how can I solve the problems? For me, problem comes first makes more sense than saying, okay, I can solve this issue, who has a problem? No, somebody else could disagree, but that's just me.
I'm one of them who agree.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna say, oh, you disagree.
No, I think, yeah, I feel, yeah, I would love to collect different kind of tools, like because we start training from like 1 or 2 different methods, but when your experience grow, you may feel maybe some of the questions in your mind, and you don't feel you have enough to solve them. And then you go out to maybe learn some other methods to try to see if they can solve the problems better than other methods. So I think I'm always open to learn new methods. And yeah, sometimes I feel if like some of the scholars, they claim themselves that, oh, I'm expert in this kind of method or in that kind of method, it's very confusing for us to remember them. Like it's quite unclear, like what's their expertise area. It's quite challenging to say my area is about this method or techniques. So I feel, yeah, like a phenomenon, what kind of problems or what kind of things like really worry you, or what's really bother you, most of the time, probably that's your area of research. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just like anything else, this is not absolute, right? So you can have a method of your choice or of your preference that you're very good at, but you shouldn't exclude others. It's fine if you establish a reputation for being for example, some people are well known for their qualitative research. When you think about qualitative, I mean, me as an editor, when I receive a qualitative piece, automatically I thought about, oh, these are good reviewers because they're known for qualitative research, and that is fine. So if you're having expertise in one particular method, that's fine. But then the more tools you have in your toolbox, the more effective or more versatile you could be in terms of the research, potential research topic areas. And nowadays, people always talk about triangulation, right? Method triangulation. So you really need to have different skills, different methods, to use different methods in the same study to establish validity, reliability, and trustworthiness, and all of that. So yeah. And that goes back to our early discussion about collaboration, work with other people. If, for example, I'm a quantitative researcher, the study really requires a mixed method, then invite somebody who is good at qualitative research, but then at least I need to understand qualitative research. That's not my strength, but I need to understand that so that the two can at least communicate.